Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Licensed to Roam. You can follow me on Twitter/X at Edward Stratman, and if you enjoy the video, would really appreciate a like, subscribe, and any comments as I get started and hope to grow the channel. All right, for this analysis, I'll be focusing on Ousmane Dembele's game-changing performance in PSG's 2-1 win over Sociedad that saw them progress to the Champions League quarterfinals. Deployed in a tweaked role by Luis Enrique that saw him essentially operate as a false nine, but it was more in the way that he implemented the role that meant he was more of a 10 and dropping into central deeper midfield areas to really connect attacks and completely dismantle the famed Real Sociedad press. In many ways, it was also reminiscent of how Jude Bellingham interprets his role at Real Madrid. Obviously, given the freedom to support build up wide areas in the half spaces and between the lines, with that freedom to make space not only for himself and for others, he was certainly key in breaking that press. It was a key element towards the victory as the tactical alteration paid off brilliantly. Obviously, to start with the base shape of PSG, and here's the way they sort of both teams kind of set up. Obviously, he was essentially on that team sheet as a number 10, which is sort of more or less the role he played, but it was just a variation in it. He moved forward, obviously, but just the dropping deep part was the key aspect of his performance. As you can see there on the average positional map from Y-Scout, just how deep he is and how involved he was in all that they did, and just the way that he coalesced with his fellow midfielders was just so brilliant. Another example there of the heat map of his from this game, where he's just in those dropping deep areas in that half space and just doing a great job of causing issues on the defenders on who to mark him, who should pick him up, and just generally creating great situations so they could bypass the press and create all manner of superiority. Obviously, there's the pass connections map just showing that he obviously had that strong link with Mbappe, which we'll get into later, and also Ruiz and Emery and Vitinha. Here's a prime example. This was obviously for his assist for Mbappe. Obviously, that positioning allowed him to be on the end of the second ball there after the goal kick. He got a 3v2 essentially going there. He's the free man. Then he just turns after scanning and then threads a lovely ball through to Mbappe, who does the rest. Here's another situation, not sort of directly involved in the play for Mbappe's second, but just the way that he dropped deep in this situation caused the overload. He was the free man. He smartly identified that space, and that sort of set the wheels in motion for the move that culminated in Mbappe's second. Here's another cool situation. Once again, dropping into that wide area, forming the 3v2, and he just plays a lovely little back heel flick. So Mendes can continue upfield, forward facing with all the momentum into that space that's been created. Obviously, here he's just supporting the attack, being the free man for the overload. 4v3, he's scanned there, so the defenders are really wary to follow him, or the midfielders are usually always sort of in two minds, confused what to do, and he's perfectly there to receive and face and head upfield to cause damage. Another situation here where he's just so key in breaking the press and just supporting the attack. He's obviously scanning, as you can see there. He's between the lines, behind the midfield line. So he's got acres of space to turn, because obviously the likes of Mbappe are pinning the defenders. So he usually takes multiple markers. So they're really wary to leave Mbappe 1v1 or with any extra space to exploit. So Dembele's there just to turn and cause that little overload and superiority positionally on their way to the races there, PSG. Other situation there is just smartly ducked off the blind side of Marino there, and he's a perfect outlet there to receive in between the lines in that forward-facing posture to carry that momentum into the attack. Another situation similar there, just between the lines, really smartly takes advantage of any weaknesses in the defensive setup to be an outlet, to be the free man, just to get on the ball in such dangerous positions where he can use both feet, he can dribble and just combine with his teammates to make things happen. See there, the superb dropping movement, just timed it really well, and he was perfectly placed to receive that pass from Beraldo that's taken out 4 Sociedad defenders, and he can turn, use his receiving angle and body shape just to protect the ball, and then he can turn or combine with his teammates and do whatever. Just the options were so endless with him when he could get in the ball in space and really create a nuisance of himself and for his team. Obviously, his positioning was very key in the counter-attacking scenarios too, where he could often be that great outlet to really spark them into life and inject positive things into the attack. Obviously, Barcola and Mbappe holding the width, and Dembele's just ducked in there, and he can surge ahead, obviously, in that forward-facing posture. Against the retreating, backpedaling defence, he's just such a menace to handle and to contain, especially when you got those runners either side of him. Another situation here where he's done the 3v2 and he's that first outlet on the counter, immediately turns and threads Mbappe through with a really crisp clinical pass to really get the attack going and to serve as the catalyst to powering his team ahead. Another one where his overloads and just the timing and the knowledge of where the space was just so important into making those build-ups get really dangerous. Obviously, he's formed the 3v2 there. The other Sociedad players have got the markers covered, and he's the 4v3, and he's the free man in the midfield there. So once again, just showed how important his role was, and the way he interpreted and performed it was so excellent. And just having such a player of his skills, so good on the ball, so good under pressure, really transferred nicely into deeper positions. In this situation, he's getting pressed heavily from behind. He just plays that lovely one-touch pass, essentially facilitates the up back through. And obviously, Emery's the key beneficiary of that, where he's there in a perfect midfield position to break the lines and be the free man, just to really disrupt that press and completely manipulate and break through it. Another cool sequence here where he actually initially wasn't on the ball, but his really clever drop deep actually drew Lenormand, the centre back. He was obviously tasked with pressuring, and that was one of the solutions Sociedad had, but that would draw him out of his defensive spot. And then Fabio and Ruiz, doing the opposite movement, started into that space that Dembele has created for him, and they're away again in that passage PSG. So just really smart on and off the ball movement and positional awareness for Dembele within the framework. Another situation here where he's dropped deep, drawn the defender out. He's played the third man combination to Mbappe, and Ruiz is so awake to that space creation, and he darts in behind there to generate another promising sequence. Yeah, another situation where he's drawn his opposite number in the midfield there, and Fabian Ruiz is the beneficiary of that to receive in really quality area where he can use his passing and just mazy running to make things happen. But once again, Dembele so crucial in breaking that pressing structure of Sociedad that's usually won the elite in the world, which I've done a couple of previous videos on in the past if you want to check them out. Another little nice feature of his game was the shrewd rotations with the likes of Ruiz and Emery, especially. Here you can see in that base sort of framework that often took on a 4-4-2 diamond. Little example of that there. Another example of it there, rotating with Ruiz, allowed him to sort of get on the ball in deeper areas, in less populated space where he could turn and face and use his wizardry on the ball to great effect under less pressure. And there's just a touch map that showed how involved he was in the midfield areas and the build-up and just progressing through the thirds, which is obviously quite different to what you usually see, usually in advanced areas, in wide areas, just in the final third, but hardly any of his touches came there. He played that sort of more creative, facilitating role in this one, and it worked wonders. Obviously, Luis Enrique spoke pretty aptly on what his team's aims was after the game. He said our goal was to generate superiority. We had options to face the goal. The team was great. Real could not resolve this superiority. And that's obviously a key aspect of that was Dembele's performance, as he was undoubtedly one of the key players in this game and getting PSG into the next stage of the Champions League against a really excellent team in and out of possession. Obviously, that's the end of the analysis. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and leave a comment. Would really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time to watch the video and have a great day. Stay tuned for the next analysis.